from coronavirus cases in the northeastern part of that state in Hall County as Georgia reopens with the encouragement of the president. In Iowa, where the White House brought the Iowa governor to Washington to praise her last week for opening up her state, and boy, how great has that been going. The 2 hospitals in Sioux City, Iowa are reportedly becoming overwhelmed. They're rapidly building out extra ICU capacity as fast as they can. That Iowa governor is now in isolation after being exposed to Vice President Pence and his staff, both at the White House and when the vice president then flew out to Iowa and took meetings with the Iowa governor and her staff without masks, without gloves, even after the vice president had just learned that his press person had tested positive, his press person with whom he had been working closely. Now the Iowa governor and her health chief are in quarantine because of their exposure to the vice president and his staff. Today, that Iowa governor held her daily coronavirus press briefing by video conference for the first time, rather than meeting reporters live face-to-face, because now she's got to be isolated too, because of her White House contacts. The White House has yet to come up with a plausible explanation for why one of the vice president's staffers appears to have told grocery and meatpacking executives that they needed to take off the masks they were already wearing before they themselves met with the vice president on that trip to Iowa late last week. Again, remember, he didn't even land in Iowa until right after he learned one of his closest aides had tested positive. His staff then told other people meeting with him to take off their masks. The vice president's staffer who just tested positive was, of course, with the president just the day before the Iowa trip, when the vice president and his communications director, the 2 of them, both with no gloves, both with no masks, they did a photo op at a nursing home in Virginia where the vice president was shown to be dropping off PPE supplies to that nursing home, even though neither he nor his press person took the precautions you're supposed to take to keep yourself from being a coronavirus vector into a nursing home. See, she's there on the right, not wearing a mask. All the reporters are wearing masks. The crew's wearing masks. She's not. She tested positive the next day. She's at a nursing home with the vice president, who then conveyed things into the nursing home, also not wearing gloves, also not wearing a mask, after working closely with his press person, who's positive. I mean, this is a weird time. It's a stressful time. Tomorrow is going to be a historic day in terms of the law and the presidency. But it's a terrible time to have a terrible government, especially with a president who is now melting down visibly out of control. All right, a lot to get to tonight. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Cancer won't wait for hospitals to get back to normal again. And at CTCA, we aren't waiting either. We're still focused on providing world-class cancer care, because cancer isn't just what we do, it's all we do. Call now.
Wonderful pistachios are available without any shells. That's all we're saying.
The future doesn't belong to the faint-hearted. It belongs to the brave.
A great people has been moved to defend a great nation.
All of us can extend a hand to those in need.
Pennsylvania National Guard has been called in.
A welcome sight first thing Monday morning. Members of the Pennsylvania National Guard rolling up to the Brighton Rehabilitation and Wellness Center. Channel 11 cameras there as members of the National Guard unloaded equipment and went in wearing masks and gloves.
It is a measure of our particular national misery right now that some part of the U.S. military, the Army Corps or Total National Guard troops or something, rolling up to a nursing home comes as welcome relief at this point, comes as good news. But 71 Americans have been killed already by coronavirus at that one Beaver County, Pennsylvania nursing home. 71 dead at that one facility. Part of a horrifying destruction inside congregate living facilities around the country. And that story in Beaver County, where they got the National Guard out today, that's kind of the story everywhere. In Massachusetts, the fatal outbreak at the Holyoke Soldiers Home in Western Mass started making the news at the end of March. Today we learned that the death toll at the Holyoke Soldiers Home has now reached 88. 88 veterans have died there. In New Jersey, 72 Americans are now reported dead at the state-run Veterans Home in Paramus. In Minnesota, of the total 591 deaths reported as of today in that state, 472 of the 591 of them were long-term care facility deaths. Nearly 80% of the deaths in Minnesota from this epidemic so far have been nursing homes and long-term care. Nationwide, the New York Times reports now that roughly a third of all deaths in the United States from coronavirus are connected to a nursing home, either somebody living there or somebody working there. That's like 25,000 deaths plus. And of course, that has all happened in only about 2 months. As has been typical in this epidemic, some of the first and most meaningful action to help the nursing homes has come from state governments that are trying to innovate their way to a solution. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo announced this weekend that nursing homes in New York will now be required by the state to test their staff twice a week. And if they don't do it, that nursing home will lose its license to operate.